All right, folks. So at this point, you are looking at this graph, and we're going to talk about how to do this to analyze the motion um, in your automata box. At this point, you should have some risers that are flush with the top of the box. I don't have the circle one because it wouldn't move up and down. Anyway, if you do, that's great. One of the things that you do need to do is, if you haven't done so already, the snail cam can cause problems. So what I'd like you to do is put some fillets on the snail cam that will allow it to the follower or riser to roll across really easily. So here is what you're going to do with that. If you haven't already done so, open up your snail cam, and we're going to put a fillet of 0.26 on this inside corner and that outside corner. Again, a 0.26. That's just a little bigger than the diameter on the riser. We're going to save that. And then when you go to your automata, you'll have this little update button. And if you watch, you'll see that thing will, when we update it, it will go boink and update to having those fillets in there. All right, so here we go with the analysis and how we're going to watch these things and what we're using that ruler for. So first of all, we're going to start with the eccentric cam. Then you're going to choose whether you do the pear cam or the snail cam. It's up to you. And so we don't want to see all this other stuff because it's going to get in our way. So let's start by going and turning off some things. So we're going to turn off any of the risers other than the eccentric. So we're going to turn off the other risers. We're going to turn off and by off, I mean the visibility of these other cams other than the eccentric riser. So I don't want to see the circle or I do want to see the eccentric. Don't want to see the pear, don't want to see the polygon, don't want to see the snail. And then finally, so we can kind of see what's going on inside of there, we'll go back up to our, let's see, oops, I'm trying to scroll down here. Why am I not able to scroll? Oh, there we go. I got to be on here and find the side that was original on where the crank is and turn that off too. So now we're kind of getting an X-ray view into the box. Now, next thing is we're going to look straight at the right side. Now, before we get going, we're going to be doing some measurements here. Notice that we've got 4 divisions between 0 and 1 inch. And on a ruler, we've got 16 divisions between 0 and 1 inch. So you're going to have to sometimes estimate how far we are. So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4 sixteenths as a fourth. And then here's our 1, 2, 3, and 4 fourths. So we'll talk about as we go along how to make those measurements in inches. All right, so here's how to get the height of the riser. First of all, we're going to put in what our displacement is at 0 degrees, which is from the top of the box. So our displacement here is 0. Now these little charts get kind of weird. So if yours goes to a weird size or something, just do the best you can with it. But we're going to try and put some numbers in here. Now we're going to check what our displacement is at 45 degrees. Here's how to do that. So while we're looking straight at the box, we have to first of all make sure that our handle is starting in the 0 position. So up here, you find your Revolute crank, and we're going to go to home position. If you don't see go to home position, that means it's already there. Notice if I right click now, it won't show me that because it's already in the home position. And what we're going to do is to get that thing to move, we're going to right click on crank and we're going to drive joint. Now notice it's going to show us this little handle here that we can pull around and pull it to different settings. And it's also showing, because we made the side not visible, that we can see what that eccentric crank is doing. So we're going to move to 45 degrees and see where the riser has displaced to. We're a little bit in between these 16th and 1/8. I'm going to say we're closer to 1/8. we'll go to the nearest 16th of an inch. And so our displacement at 45 degrees is 1/8 of an inch. Now let's see where we are at 90 degrees. So we're going to grab this guy, move it to 90 degrees. And at 90 degrees, we are at, I'm going to call that 3/8. Hopefully you remember how to read your ruler. 3/8. Okay, and then we're going to go to 135. Zoom out a little bit so I can see this. At 135 degrees, we are at, let's see, I'm going to call that 13/16. 13/16. And at 180 degrees, let's see where we are at 180. We're right at 1. So at 180, we're at 1. Now, we could keep going through all that, or we could be smart and say, well, because this is symmetric, the numbers going up from 1 are really going to mirror the numbers going down from 1. So we already know, well, if it was 3/16 going up to 1, it's going to be, or sorry, 13/16, it's going to be 13/16 on the way down, then 3/8 on the way down, and finally the 1/8. Okay. And that gets us our measurements as we go around that circle and move that crank around a full 360 degrees. Now, here's how to lay that out on the chart. So we're going to use our, up here you've got a bunch of tools that are including where the line is, there's a drop down that allows us to do a curve. We're going to select curve and start down here at 0 because that's where we are at 0 degrees. We're at 0 displacement. We're going to click there. Now, Paul, notice that you're creating this curve. At 45 degrees, we are at an 1/8, which is halfway between 0 and 1/4. At 90 degrees, we are at 3/8, which is 1/4, and halfway in between is 3/8. We're going to click there. At 135, we're at 13/16, which is just a little bit more than 3/4. Click. Finally, at the top, we are at 1. And then we're going to do the same thing on the way back. 225 is at 13/16. 270 is 3/8. 315 is 1/8, and then we are back to 0. And when you get to the end, you're going to double click on it, and that will finish your curve. Now you can make your curve whatever color you want it to be, and you can increase the weight if you want it to, or whatever you want to do to make that look the way you want it to look. And now this is showing us the motion of what that is going to do as we go across and through the rotation of your cam. Now it's your turn. Pause this video. You're going to turn off whatever things that you don't want to see, other than you pick either the pear or the snail, and you're going to graph that out and do the same thing that we just did with the eccentric cam here. All right, now that you've learned how to graph a cam, we're going to go backwards now, and instead of having the cam make the graph, we're going to use the graph to make a cam. So you watch these videos. If you did not, please make sure that you have done that, because first of all, they're on Edpuzzle, and I can see whether you got them or not, and they have important information. Couple important things to note when we get started. First of all, don't go below a 1/2 inch. Start right here, because you need to have room for the hole. And if you start at 0, you're starting with, there's going to be no place for a hole to be. So no less than 1/2 of an inch. Another thing is that when you go to make your curve, you can't go totally crazy and do so crazy up and down and all over the place, and God forbid backwards, because that can't even happen. So if you do something, all crazy like that, it's not going to work. It has to be something somewhat smooth, and it can't dramatically change. So for purposes of explaining how this works, I'm going to do the barbell thing that they kind of did, or generally how that works. I encourage you not to just copy me, but to do your own. So I want my motion, if I'm going to do the barbell guy, first of all, no lower than a half an inch. So we'll start here. So the barbell lifter lifts the barbell, then it sort of flattens off for a minute. Then he lifts it up a little bit higher. It stays up there and then finally dramatically drops off. Again, don't go less than, okay. So that is something that it might look like if I wanted to do the guy lifting the barbell. I encourage you again to think about what motion you would like, and you do something different than what we've got going on over here. Now, I'm going backwards this time. So I'm going to look at, well, what's my displacement at 0 is going to be 1/2 of an inch. At 45, I'm going to be, mine looks like I'm a little less than 3/4, but I think 3/4 is pretty close. At 90, I'm at 1. At 135, I'm still at 1. At 180, I'm still at 1. At 225, I'm getting up here. One looks like about 1 3/8. So 1 and space 3/8. And again, your numbers ought to be something different. At 270, I'm really close to 2. It's like 1 7/8. And at 315, I'm up at 2, and then it's going to dramatically drop down. All right. Now that I've got these done and I know what the motion is that I want to do on my graph, now we're going to translate that to a circle graph. All right, on this slide, it's asking us to copy the measurements from the previous slide. So we can go ahead and take those guys and copy them. And we can highlight these cells and paste those values. If this, again, gets kind of wonky, these charts are weird, then do the best you can just to show that you've got these measurements. Now we're going to take these, and instead of going in a linear fashion, we're going to go around on this what's called a polar grid, where instead of going linear, we go 45, 90, 135 in a circle. And this will actually create the cam. So again, we're going to do our curved line. We're starting at whatever line we are at 0, which is, now these have 8 marks for each inch, which means it's down to 1/8 of an inch precision. So we're halfway is 4 here for me. Yours is going to be different. So again, this is an example, not what you should be doing. So next one is 3/4 at 45 degrees, which is right about there. And for me, it's 1 inch here, 1 inch at the next line, 1 inch at the next line. Then it goes out to about 1 3/8 at 225. For me, 1 1 2 3/8. Then it's 7/8. Then it's all the way to 2. Now you'll notice when you finish and you go back, it'll kind of snap those or the original line and the ending line together. If you click, it's going to create this object. Now you can do whatever color you want for your lines. Maybe make it a little bit heavier. Now, one thing that's important is we want to be able to see inside this graph. So you do have to turn your fill color to transparent and make it so you can see inside. You'll see why in just a moment. All right. So now what we need to do is we have our outline for our camp. We're going to take an image of that and save it. So using your snipping tool, go in here. Now, oops, I messed up. Hold on. Let me show you something you got to do first. So click on this image, and what's the reason why you want to see this square is because this center point is right in the middle of that square. So now when you go to do your snip, You want to stay right. In fact, put your cursor like so it's on the, see this little blue square? So it's right lined up with one of the inside corners of that guy, and then drag it so it matches the other one on the other side. That way we know that our center point is right there in the middle. Okay. We're going to save this to your desktop. I already have one saved. But you're going to save it there. And now in Fusion, I'm going to start a new file. Okay. Now, before we do anything, we're going to insert that picture. So we're going to insert the canvas, find that file that you just saved, okay, and we're going to put it on the front view. Notice the view cube? We'll put it on this front view plane. Now, expand it out a little bit. It doesn't really matter how much because we're going to adjust that in just a moment anyway. Click OK. Now we can see the image that we put in. And now we're going to create a sketch on the front view. Make sure that your sketch grid is on. That's going to be important. Okay, we got to be able to see it. And we're going to edit the canvas. We're going to edit that picture. So right click, edit canvas. Now we can adjust the size and things. Now I've got weirdness going on where I need to be able to flip things and flip things and flip things again. Let's see. There we go. So that I've got it the right orientation. Sometimes your pictures will come in backwards. Now there's two things that we're going to need to do. We're going to need to zoom way in. We're going to need to move it so that the center point, it's hard to see, but you can see the center point of the image is going to be right over the origin point. Make sure it's as close as you can get it there. Okay. So now we've got the center point of the image right there on the origin point. And then we're going to size it so that our graph matches the grid on the sketch. So see, oops, I didn't mean to move that. Hold on, let's move that back to where it's on that origin point. Whoops. Okay, there we go. Maybe one more over. Nope, looks good. Okay, whoops, I didn't mean to mess that up. What I did mean to do was grab the corner here and expand that out until you've got this outside edge that represents 2 edges, or 2 inches, sorry, on the 2 and the other one on the 1. Get it as close as you can, and then we're going to click OK. So now our image matches actual size that we want it to be. All right, so now that we've got that, we're going to first of all put a hole in there. So we need a circle right on the origin point that's going to be 5/16. Remember, that's the size of our shaft. And then it's kind of like we did with the other thing when we created this. We're going to use the spline tool. So we're going to create a spline. I like the fit point spline best. Pick a starting spot, and you're just going to draw around that image. You don't have to be perfect about it, but the more points you make, the smoother it's going to be. If it's a long curve, you can do longer distances if it's kind of a smoother, longer curve. And then when it gets a tighter curve, you can do a few more. Just get it tighter, and then the longer ones longer. And finally, we're going to get back to where we started. Okay, and it should create a profile like that. So once we've created the profile, we're going to finish sketch, and we're going to extrude that to 0.25, just like we did the other ones. We can turn off the canvas now so we can see what we've done. And please save this as custom cam. Our next video will show you how to put that in the box and how to make it work. All right, nice work. We'll see you next time.